What's up, guys? You are watching Fite Feed, and since we just got through UFC 318, what I am going to be doing in this video is going through who I think the key fighters from UFC 318 should be facing next in their upcoming matchups, whenever those may be. Before I dive into each of those key fighters, I want to just say thank you for stopping by my channel. If you're new to Fite Feed, I hope you subscribe. Make sure to give this video a like if you enjoy. And before we get into the meat of things, I would love for you guys to comment below any of the matchups that you might have thought of for some of the fighters from UFC 318. Let's go ahead and dive in to who I have matched up for 8 key fighters, and I will take you guys there now. So, as you guys can see, I've got the key fighters that I wanted to make matchups for coming out of UFC 318. I picked 8 total fighters. I will say there is one bonus in here. You might be seeing that Mr. Brendan Allen is not on this list, but he is on this list because I feel him and another opponent on this fight card actually should end up facing each other. So you'll see Brendan Allen, but he'll just be on the other side. Now, outside of that, I've got other fighters like Max Holloway, Paulo Costa, Daniel Rodriguez, Kevin Holland, Pitbull, Patricio Pitbull, Vinicius Oliveira, Ateba Gautier, and Islam Dulatov. So those are the 8 fighters that I have decided to focus on in terms of who I want their next matchup to be. Now, diving in, and we're going to start from the top, guys. You're going to see Max all the way down to Islam Dulatov. So starting off with Max Holloway, who his next opponent should be. There's been a lot of rumblings in the lightweight division, and there's a lot of people speculating what should happen, what could happen. What I'm going to say here is, assuming there is no matchup that's already made for this fighter, the next fight for this fighter, I believe, is Max Holloway. Now, with that, the fighter that I'm talking about is Paddy the Baddy. Fuck you. Why did I do that? That fighter is Patches himself, Patrick the Baddy Pimblett. I believe this fight is a crazy fight because you're going to have Max doing what he does at lightweight. He's got power in the hands, still got that speed and those combinations he can string together. Also very good ground defense, very good at takedown defense as well, scrappy on the ground. Think he actually gives Paddy a true test to determine if Patches is ready for that championship bout against Ilia Topuria. I personally think he may be ready, but just having a styling performance on Michael Chandler, who's aging, that doesn't make it a clear-cut win for Paddy to get that next shot at the title. I do think he needs to be in contention here. He's got to have one more fight, I think. And people have been saying Gaethje and stuff, but Gaethje's like waiting on the UFC to just give him a random title shot. So I feel this is the best matchup for Paddy to not only prove his skills to himself and the world, but also prove he's ready for that next shot should he get a win over Max Holloway. I think it would be a fun matchup, and that is definitely one that I would like to see happen. Next fight on this, the next fighter from UFC 318 is Paulo Costa, and his next opponent, in my honest opinion, it should be, and this is just based off of rankings because now Paulo is still at the tail end of the middleweight rankings, but he has a foe that is just near there as well, which is Brendan Allen. I feel Paulo versus Brendan Allen makes the most sense because Brendan Allen's just a little bit ahead of Paulo in the rankings, but not by a large quantity. I think it's only a few spots. I feel when you kind of look at these rankings and look at who each guy's faced in their past, these two just haven't seemed to cross paths yet. So I feel like that is the best matchup to determine who then will get a higher ranking matchup in the, maybe even the top 5, top 10. This matchup I feel would be the best because these guys are on a similar fight schedule now since they fought on the same night. They could probably hopefully turn around pretty quickly, get back in there, see who is ready for that upper echelon of the middleweight division, whoever comes out victorious in this matchup. Now, jumping down to the next fighter and his next matchup. We've got Daniel Rodriguez. D-Rod has now entered the rankings again. I believe he was there previously and then got shuck out from one or two of his losses. I can't remember who took his spot, but based on the current rankings, it looks like Kevin Holland's like number 13 or number 12 or 13 in the welterweight rankings. So D-Rod is going to take that spot, which means D-Rod is going to be looking probably to get another shot at, some of the guys that are maybe in like the top, not the top 10 really, but like number 10 or like 11 or anyone ahead of him essentially. And so based on that, my opinion is with D-Rod being an aging guy, like I feel like if you throw D-Rod in there with a Michael Morales or like one of these really young, hungry whippersnappers, it's kind of a mismatch in my opinion. And I hate to do my matchmaking that way, but I would say the best fight for him at this point to continue proving his skill set is going in there against a guy like Gilbert Darino Burns. Darino Burns is still in the top of rankings of the welterweight division. I think he's number 9 or 10. And this would be a great matchup. Also, you nullify any age discrepancy because these guys are very similar in age. So this would really just be skill for skill, in my opinion. And I think it would be a great test for D-Rod to see, hey, how do you deal with some of these guys that are not only strikers, but have a lot of grappling prowess as well. He has not fought a guy like Gilbert Darino Burns in that regard, in my opinion. Next fight, and I did include Kevin Holland, even though he lost, just because I feel Kevin Holland, a lot of people like to joke that he has Dana White privilege, and he is also just a fun fighter that we all enjoy watching, at least myself is in that category, I guess. So decided to do him over some of the other fighters that were on this card. Now, taking a look at Kevin Holland, I feel Kevin Holland, although lost, had a great performance out there against D-Rod. And Kevin Holland's still he's still in his prime. Like he still has a lot of time to continue cooking in the octagon. So what I would say in that regard, there's a very fun matchup. And although this goes back to people saying he has Dana White privilege, let's just say the Dana White privilege for Kevin Holland is true. If that is the case, this match makes perfect sense then, because technically speaking, with Kevin having a loss to a guy who was outside of the rankings, he should not get a matchup with a guy who's higher up in the rankings. However, with the Dana White privilege, it would make sense. And I feel the best matchup here would be for Kevin Holland to have a rematch with Joaquin Buckley at welterweight. These guys have kind of been, jabbering back and forth since 2020 after Kevin Holland knocked the snot out of him. Joaquin Buckley's been wanting to get that one back. Here's a perfect chance. You got Joaquin Buckley, who's, I think, number 6 in the welterweight rankings. And as you guys know, there's a bit of a logjam in welterweight right now, especially with Islam taking that shot against JDM. There's a lot of guys in limbo. So I think what's going to happen is Ian Gary and Sean Brady are going after it. You got Kamaru Usman kind of hanging out there. I don't know who his next opponent will be, but basically my opinion is with Joaquin just losing to Kamaru and being number 6, this is a great matchup you could turn around, and this could be a great addition to any pay-per-view card to help sell some pay-per-views. It could be a great addition to you really aren't going to put this on a fight night card unless these two are the marquee names on that card. I think you could build an entire card around these two fighting in a 5-round main event. So that is my opinion for Kevin Holland. The next fighter on the card that we are going to take a look at here is Patricio Pitbull. And who his next opponent should be, I had to get a bit creative with this one, guys. I have to say, I'm still not like super impressed with Patricio Pitbull, and it's not that his skill set's bad. I do think he's at an age in this weight class that is just every day that goes by, he's going to be continuing to kind of fall out of having a chance at title contention. And I think at this point, being at his age, and I don't want to completely shut this down, and I don't want to seem as though I have no belief in him whatsoever, but just statistically speaking, he's like 38 years old or whatever, 37 or 38. At 145, the odds of him reaching that status of champion are very slim at this point, especially when you have the hungry guys that he's going up against, if he's going in the top of the rankings. So with that, I think we have to get creative with the matchmaking on Patricio Pitbull. And I think we have him and another aging fighter that he knows all too well in Michael Chandler go up against each other in a 155-pound scrap. Have a rematch in the UFC. There's some name value there for both guys. Obviously, Chandler he's a bona fide UFC superstar at this point. Although Chandler had a pretty bad loss against Paddy in his last matchup, you've got Chandler, and also Chandler has a really bad UFC record, but nonetheless, Chandler is still, name value. It just carries. And this would be a fun matchup on any UFC card, especially any UFC pay-per-view card. You guys, I mean, we could put this one in Madison Square Garden, right? Like, that's a great matchup. Like, it could be on the prelims. It could be part of the main card. So I think that's a fun matchup. I think it's a great stylistic matchup for both guys. They fought in the past. There's that story there. But also, you're not giving either guy like a huge advantage in the age department. That's the thing that's worrying me to me, is putting Patricio up against a young, hungry whippersnapper. He's just too old. So that is my opinion on Patricio's next fight. Let's go in to the next fighter, which is Vinicius Oliveira. And I believe Vinicius has been calling his fucking shot to get one of these up-and-coming guys that's in the top of the rankings. He wants to fucking move his way up in these rankings. He's going to be, after winning against Kyler Phillips, he has now cinched the number 12 spot of the bantamweight rankings. Vinicius called out quite a few people, but notably he called out Sean O'Malley, which I don't feel like that should be the next fight for Vinicius, solely because I don't know when Sean's going to fight next. I would like to see Vinicius get out there sooner rather than later. But I know a fighter who is prime for giving Vinicius a similar shot that this fighter previously received, and really was not deserving of it if you consider the fact that this fighter had not fought anyone in the rankings. I think that this fighter, having the number 2 spot still in the bantamweight rankings, which is crazy to me, should give an opportunity to a guy who's way lower in the rankings to make his way up should he win. And that fighter is no one other than Umar Nurmagomedov, number 2 in the bantamweight rankings. Umar's got a great game. He had a great fight with Merab. I still believe he did not deserve that quick of a title shot. I know he did beat Corey Sandhagen, and it is somewhat Corey Sandhagen's fault for giving him this opportunity when he was not even in the rankings at the time. But at the end of the day, Umar got that win, and it catapulted him above all of the hard matchups for him at bantamweight because of that. And so what I would like to see now is the UFC really have Umar tested by an up and coming prospect like Vinicius, who has the skills to potentially nullify the grappling and actually beat him in this fight. This would be an insane matchup. I know every UFC fan would be interested in this. And even though what's kind of cool about this one, Nurmagomedov is going to get some of the casuals to come out of the closet, if you will. But it's also like, this is kind of like a low-key banger, right? Like, not all the casuals are going to know about this fight. And so this is one of those like, if you know, now you know, Dana White fucking fights that he always fucking does. So that's a fun matchup, I think. And I also like it because you have two sides of this coin. You have the side of Vinicius beating Umar and staking his claim to then get a shot at the belt, which is great. And, he could, based on his skill set, he could have an opportunity to actually do that. I think Vinicius has a great game in the fact that he might be down in some fights, but he just continues to fucking go at his opponent the entire time unless you knock him out or submit him. So on that side of the coin, you got Vinicius winning and then, getting a shot at Merab. Or on the other side of the coin, you have Umar winning against Vinicius and staking his claim that, hey, look, I'm here to stay. I'm proving myself. I've got this win over this up-and-coming prospect who's challenging, and I've earned my keep in the top of the rankings here. The next fighter on the card that we are going to look at is Ateba Gautier. Ateba Gautier had a stellar performance this past weekend, and I believe, although he is now 2-0 in the UFC with 2, I think, first-round knockouts, and now looking to probably get that next guy, what I would like to see, though, with Gautier, I would like to see him get a couple more tune-up fights, if you will. I don't want to see him go to the top of the division just yet. I want to see him knock off a couple skilled, maybe crafty vets. And so, who I believe would be a great matchup for Ateba, and this is still, I'm thinking, outside the rankings. Ateba is great, but the guys he's beat thus far, it doesn't tell us if he's ready for some of the guys in the rankings. And I don't want the UFC to blow their wad on going with a higher ranked opponent at this time, and then Ateba maybe being fraud checked. So what I think is best for him is giving him someone who's a crafty, scrappy, and potential next victim in Gerald Meerschaert. Now, Gerald Meerschaert, guys, I love this guy. He's a great fighter. He always goes out there. He fucking leaves it out there. Even in fights where he's losing, he somehow fucking finds a way to submit his opponents. Just a really scrappy vet. I love GM3. And I feel like Ateba in this matchup, it would be a bit of a mismatch, I will say. But I'm kind of going with the guys of how UFC likes to build guys, especially guys who are potential stars, especially in a market that was previously owned by Francis Ngannou, but now since the UFC has just decided Francis Ngannou no longer exists in the world, like they had that one random fucker from Cameroon who they're like, this is the first Cameroon fighter from in the UFC, even though Francis Ngannou had already left the UFC and had how many fucking fights in the UFC and won the belt in the UFC. Anyways, they could really tap back into that market with Ateba. And I think using a guy like Gerald Meerschaert is somewhat of a low risk element to Ateba, given that he's super young, super powerful, very good with his boxing. This is probably a mismatch for GM3, but what it also will test though is if GM3 can make it a scrappy fight like he's been able to in his recent matchups, like for instance, his matchup against Edmund Shabazian, then we get to see a side of Ateba of can he handle a guy who is a bit scrappier, who can eat a couple shots, and then also be an awkward style on the feet, because that is totally what GM3 is. Very awkward timing. He's almost like a Temu Dricus Duplessis, if you will. And I don't mean disrespect by that. I mean GM3 is a very skilled guy. It's just I just don't know if he'll be able to handle that power that Ateba has. But I think it's a fun matchup, and if GM3 can make it a longer fight and last a little bit longer than some of these other opponents, it allows us to build more info on Ateba. And then also if Ateba gets the win, it just continues to catapult him and maybe gets him ready for someone in the lower part of the top 15 rankings. Now, finally, I am on to my last fighter from UFC 318, and that fighter is Islam Dulatov. And Islam Dulatov had a fantastic performance this past weekend. Very crisp boxing, just fucking threw the whole kitchen sink at Adam Fugit and got his ass out of there. And I feel similar to Ateba Gautier, I want to see Islam get a couple more fights before we shoot him into the rankings and give him some of those ranked fights, right? I want to see him go up against some of these guys that are just outside the rankings and could be good tests for him. Now, in what I've seen from Islam Dulatov so far, especially on Contender Series, I haven't seen anybody in the UFC at least. Obviously, this last fight was his first fight in the UFC as a UFC fighter. Previously on Contender Series, he won. So let's just count Contender Series and UFC. He hasn't had a grappler type style go up against him really. And so what I would like to see for Islam Dulatov is being tested in that realm, seeing how he matches up. Now, this could also be a bit of a layup matchup for him, given that his skill set is very high. But who I think is the best matchup for him, just to test that grappling prowess, would be Themba Gorimbo. So Themba he's coming off a pretty bad loss to Vicente Luque, where he got choked out immediately when they fought. And that was back in December. So these guys are definitely on different schedules here. But I don't know if Themba actually has a fight coming up. And so if Islam Dulatov is looking to turn around quickly, this could be something that is done, in these Q4 of this year, where it's a great matchup for Dulatov. But on the opposite side of that coin, it's also a great matchup for Gorimbo if he's able to fend off that striking from Dulatov and implement his game plan. If he's able to get a win over a kind of hot prospect that's Dulatov, he has a chance to continue building that name recognition that he was building on previous to his loss to Vicente Luque. So I think that this could be a very fun matchup, and a win on either side really can help build that fighter into their next fight in the UFC. So there you guys have it. Those are the matchups that I would make coming out of UFC 318. Like I said, make sure you subscribe to Fite Feed so you can stay on top of all the MMA content that I'm posting. And make sure you give this video a like, comment below. What do you guys think of my picks? I would love to hear who you feel are, the better picks for each fight. And then also, if you disagree with any of these and you feel like it should be something different, would love to hear that as well. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video.